Hi,
Hi.
welcome back. I just made a video on why 3.1 is a bad update, or at the very least had a bad live stream. Maybe I was a bit harsh on it because there's definitely mixed opinions about the video, but most people seem to agree. Although, I think there is one pretty big issue with version 3.1, even version 3.2, and with Star Rail as a whole that we can all agree on, and that is not releasing enough 4-star units. A long time ago, I made a video about 4 stars having some issues, and honestly at the time it wasn't really that important and it didn't really get views either. However, the last 4-star unit came out in 2.5. There have been 7 5-star units consecutively, and 8 if you count Remembrance MC, that came out in a row without any 4-star units in between. There isn't going to be a 4-star unit 3.2 either, and it's definitely a pretty big issue. There's probably one in 3.3, but at this point I'm not even sure, so let's talk about the issue with 4-star units in Honkai Star Rail. Before we start though, you should like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future, because not many of you are actually subscribed. You should also join the Express Friend Discord server, for a lovely community to hang out with. I'll be expecting you there, so let's get on to it. So the issue I was really discussing back when I made that video was the fact that most 4-star units were pretty useless, especially when compared to 5-star units. Now, it's pretty normal in a gacha game for a 4-star unit to be less useless than a 5-star unit, and it's usually pretty expected. However, other than Gallagher, Moza, March 7th, and Pilla, and maybe other ones like Ting Yun, there aren't really any good 4-star units to use these days. I bet you most of everyone's teams are full 5-star teams besides these units. Also, the Trailblazer in this game is so powerful that I would count them as a 5-star even if they are free, but even if you do count them as a 4-star, the Trailblazer should 100% be guaranteed and a given, and they should definitely release 4-star units alongside them as well. And not just say, well, we released RMC, you don't need 4 stars for 2 more patches like they have. This is obviously a bigger issue for F2P players more than light spenders, but they're the biggest part of the player base anyway. It always comes down to feeling forced to get a 5-star unit because you don't have a 4-star unit to take its place. A really great example of a good 4-star unit, or 2 good 4-star units, are March and Moza, which can be used to substitute Topaz, which is slightly better than each of them, and in the end you really don't have to pull for Topaz, because you don't need her in the team when you have either of these two and Robin. And you definitely have Hunt March, by the way, because she's free. So you just have to pull Robin to complete your Face Xiao team, and you don't feel forced to get a 5-star unit you might not want to get. There's also Gallagher and Lingshaw, but they're sustain units rather than support units dedicated to a 5-star DPS, so it's a little different since you can just get both either way because you have 2 teams. Now, DPS 4-star units also feel pretty bad to play, but that's honestly just because of HP inflation and all of that stuff. If they do introduce good buffs in 3.2, the old DPS units will be pretty fine in my opinion. You could even use Moza as a DPS unit, so the state of 4-star DPS units is probably pretty fine. Again, especially after they get buffed. The real problem is that we haven't had any new 4-star units for a really long time. And even then, when talking about leaks, there's only one 4-star unit that I know is coming out in Euphorius, which is Mr. Rekka. There's probably another one, but we don't know yet. Now, there is a pretty big issue with releasing so many 5 stars without considering 4-star units, and that is of course power creep. Now, character buffs are coming in 3.2, but not only is it questionable how effective they'll actually be, but it's also pretty much a band-aid solution, and it wouldn't be a very effective band-aid if things keep going like this. If they keep releasing 5-star after 5-star after 5-star like they've been doing, all that'll happen is they'll make every new 5-star better than the ones that came before, like they've already been doing, at the very least in some way, so power creep would still be going the same way. And then 2.x characters would have to get buffed, only then for 1.x characters to start feeling useless again, thus demanding more buffs. Character buffs are great, but if things keep going like this, it'll just keep getting worse and worse. We'll have to keep asking for more and more buffs. I think that Maida and Tribute would work perfectly fine as 4-star units, but that's just an example. Some people would definitely want them to be 5 stars, I'm not asking to reduce their ranking, but if they were 4 stars from the start, nobody would have batted an eye, and you could have probably done some other 5-star unit in 3.1, and reduce any incentivization you have to make, for example, Finon significantly stronger than Maida because they're both destruction units, and Finon is supposed to be a main character of Amphorius. If every single new DPS unit has to be a 5-star, it just gets really exhausting, not only to keep up with them meta-wise, but it gets exhausting for players who like these units to keep having to spend up to 180 Star Rail passes just to be able to get a unit they like. Just because a unit has a 4-star doesn't mean they're liked less either. A 4-star unit can be very effective in the story, and people would like that unit a lot, just like Gallagher, March 7th, Dunhung. Gallagher is generally seen by the community as not only the best 4-star unit in the game, but also a really great character in the story. A good character doesn't always have to be a 5-star too, so nearly every single unit having the price tag of a 5-star is really exhausting. Again, I'm not asking to reduce the rank or value of any of the planned characters that will release as 5-star units, but just stop releasing 5-star units at such an insane rate after you've released all the planned characters. When looking at other games, Genshin currently has 95 characters, with 42 of them being limited 5 stars, so 44.5% of Genshin's characters are limited 5-star units. Honkai Star Rail has 65 characters as of 3.2, and 35 of them are limited 5-star units, so more than 50% of Honkai Star Rail's characters are limited 5-star units. And it's already catching up to Genshin in raw number of 5 stars, and Genshin is more than twice as old as Star Rail. It's definitely a huge factor as to why power creep happened as quickly as it did, and yeah, maybe that's addressed, but they have to stop releasing this many 5-star units without any accompanying 4-star units. So what they could do to add more 4-star units is a few things. Adding 4-star DPS units that are just decent DPS units. However, the problem with those is that you'll most likely bench them the second you get a good 5-star DPS, so I think Moza and March are much better examples that already exist in the game. You could play them as main DPS units if you really wanted to, but you could also play them as support units for characters like Fei Xiao and Yun Li, so you don't have to bench them when you get a new 5-star DPS unit. When it comes to a character like Trippy though, I do think her base kit is definitely 5-star material because vulnerability and resistance penetration are very powerful stats, and we do have a spot for her in the current Harmony roster, although it would be nice to have more 4-star Harmony units. Gallagher is also a really good example of a 4-star unit. He's just a really good healer. They could add so many different types of 4-star healers to fit all the different metas, it's honestly kind of ridiculous. Speaking of different metas, there are so many different types of niches and playstyles that you could make 4-star units for, and make all playstyles feel more complete. DOT could use more characters and actual DOT dedicated healers and supports. Acheron could use a more frequent debuff applier like Jiaozhou with 4-star scaling for those that don't have or don't want Jiaozhou, so on and so forth. It's not like there's a shortage of units that could be released as 4 stars either, specifically the goddamn Annihilation Gang. If anything, they should have had a small part in the Penacony story as villains colluding with Sunday, and release as 4-star units, since they're not supposed to be that powerful of a group. Maybe they have plans for them in the future, but at this point I highly doubt if they'll even ever come out. Either way, I really hope this reaches Hoyoverse's ears, just like the power creep and story complaints did, because it's a pretty annoying yet very easily avoidable issue to have that just stems from greed of wanting people to only ever consider pulling for 5-star units. So, let's see if 3.3 does indeed have a 4-star character. That's it, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and join the Expression and Discord server for a fun community to hang out with. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.